Welcome everybody. I think I speak for the whole panel when I say we're so excited to see all of you here today, and we absolutely were in your position a few years ago. So have some phenomenal young people on the committee, the panel today, and want to kick it off by having them introduce themselves, tell us how they were involved in NPF in the past and what they gained from that experience in their careers thus far.
I'll start. My name is Paul Theobald. I was involved with NPF when I was going to UT back in 2011, and it definitely helped me get where I am now, which is currently a Chief of Staff for an Austin area representative in the Capitol.
And I'm the Legislative Director for Representative Ramon Romero out of District 90 in Fort Worth. I was involved with NPF as a speaker for the White House Young America Roundtable, must have been in 2010 or 12, okay, 2012. And got to meet a lot of really great young undergrads and loved the program and followed it ever since.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Beamer. I was an NPF alum from the political campaign boot camp that actually came to be an asset to me when I was the South Texas field director for Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst's campaign in 2011. So use that expertise, and am now the Chief of Staff for City Council Member Dave Martin, who represents District E for the City of Houston.
Thank you, guys. So I first want to talk about advice, because at this stage in the game, when they're looking for this first opportunity to get their foot in the door, advice is crucial. I remember my first ever internship, first day, my supervisor sat me down. He said there's two types of people in government: those that want to do great work and those that want to be great people. And he asked me which one I wanted to be. And that's something that's really stuck with me, lives in the back of my mind when I make big professional decisions. So I want to ask you guys, is there something like that that is kind of like you live by, and is there any advice that has been surprising yet the most effective in your careers?
Absolutely. My piece of advice for you is find your passion, follow it, and then try to get somebody to pay you to do it. A lot of people do it the other way. They go to a job that's paying, and then you can spend years in a job and realize that you're not being fulfilled as a person, personally or professionally. So that would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, and building off of what Paul said, I was also going to say follow that passion. So you all are here because you're very passionate either about you're helping your communities or a particular issue, and that is exactly the kind of person that I was and that you all are. And I remember my mentor telling me, Michelle, don't be afraid to reach out to people, to try to have coffee with folks, particularly that are older than you are, who can guide you, because I know I had a lot of anxiety when I was a sophomore or a senior in UT, thinking, what am I going to do next? It was right after the recession. There weren't a lot of jobs, and I was a liberal arts major, and so I had a lot of concerns, and really talking to folks and reaching out to them and talking to professors really helped me, because I was a first-generation college-going student. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. My parents don't have a professional network that I could leverage, so it was incredibly important for me to try to make those types of connections. And it was the Archer program here at UT, and other professors who were able to open those doors to leverage that network that eventually got me my first job, and my first job on a campaign, and so on and so forth.
For me, what my kind of strategy going into any internship or any program with your school, you're in a prime position right now because you have resources available to you that are ready. When you see that email blast from your school that says, sign up for this fellowship or interview for this new program that's coming out, like the ones that Annette Strauss Institute provides, do it. If it seems like, oh, maybe this is a little too competitive, Go for it, get yourself out of your comfort zone and apply. You don't know, how many positions are available for those spaces. You don't know what they're looking for, and always try to expand your horizons. And I'm also a UT Archer. I was in their second graduate class. And I went to DC, lived there over the summer, and I used the intern to get myself into every single office I could. I started with the Texas delegation, obviously, because they're going to be the most friendly. And being from Texas, I can definitely say, hey, I'm a gal from Houston, Texas. Can I have coffee with your legislative director? And so that actually happened, and I set up meetings with chiefs of staff, legislative directors, schedulers, and really capitalized on that experience. So don't be fearful of your lack of experience. Use that as a way to say, hey, I'm just an intern. Can you teach me something today? And they will. One of my mentors at my internship was with the National Republican Congressional Committee. One of my communications advisors for that organization said, find your mission. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, who has a personal mission? And then I decided that, okay, maybe I need to sit down and think about that. And so my personal mission has been to change the public perception of what a public servant is. Because we get the rap of, oh, well, they're lazy. They just sit in that office and take notes, and they never talk to the representative or their elected official about any of my issues. And so in my office, we take casework as priority one for staff and really providing a customer service opportunity. So finding that mission has really helped me to hone my skills and really focus my career on what I want to do and what I want to get out of it. So if you can take that time to think about what you love about what public service or civic engagement brings to your life, put it on paper, and then craft your own messaging. That's a great tool to use. I know you guys are going to do an elevator speech type thing, but that's definitely something. If you can hone in on that goal for you and be able to define it in a few words or a sentence and stick to it, put it on a wall, stare at it, and make sure you keep going until you've achieved that mission.
Absolutely agree, and I think a lot of politics is showing up and being visible and trying to get your foot in the door and the most opportunities you can when you're first starting out. So on that note, I want to ask you guys, is there any best foot in the door strategy that you have? And maybe if you have a couple examples of that, could you share that with us?
Sure. So answer this one, just how many people in here are current interns? Okay, no need to answer this one. You who are not, why? Why aren't you an intern right now? That's no excuse. You should be an intern in grad school, absolutely. Be involved. I think Evan was excellent earlier, talking about showing up, going to different things, making your online presence visible. Be involved. I used to show up to Texas Tribune events all the time. And this was when I was still going to school. It was on my personal time. I didn't receive any benefit outside of it other than being engaged, knowing what was going on, and having my face seen, which is a little bit easier. This guy knows red beards kind of stick out, right? But you need to make yourself visible. Unless you have a name that you can go off of or extensive family connections, you have to be the one to make that inroad and make sure that people know who you are and your value to public service.
I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian. For those of you that might not have internships, but you might be working, I completely understand. I know that I had a lot of students that because I was a college advisor straight out of undergrad, and I knew some of my students were helping their families supplement income. And so I know that this town, there are a lot of unpaid internships. In fact, we see them at the Capitol all the time. And so I know that that can be very difficult to leverage for some of you all. And I just want to make sure that you all know even your any work experience that you might have, whether it's a barista at Starbucks or not, there are ways of angling and positioning and saying, this is how committed I am. If there's anything that you take away from today, it's the power of your personal story. Do not be afraid to pick out people that you can talk to and open up to and be vulnerable with, because that's the human side. I mean, at the end of the day, public service is about serving your fellow human beings. And so I think that entails that we have to not be afraid to be a little bit vulnerable and to show what is that question, what is that passion that drives us in the very first place to seek out these different pathways. And so even if you haven't had any internship experience because you are having to work, there are ways of messaging that in a way that demonstrates that you are someone who is committed and that you would be an asset to any team, for your first job experience.
Completely agree. Whenever I'm interning for a new job in the office, whether it's an intern or a staff person, the first thing I look at is, what is your presence when you walk in a room? Do you come in with confidence? Is your head up? Are you presentable? What do you tell? What is your outward appearance telling me as a staff member? Because if I'm going to hire you, I want to know that I can send you into a room of constituents and you're going to represent our boss well. One thing to keep in mind when you are interviewing for a new position, whether it's internships or a full-time job, make sure that you research the industry that you're going into. Know the council member's council district, know where your state representative represents, know one or two things. Look at some news articles, prepare some notes. I heard that the city of Houston is looking at homelessness and passing an aggressive panhandling ordinance. What are your thoughts on that? Engage in the interview, give back, because to me as a chief of staff, I'm like, oh, wow, this person is, wanting to learn more about this position, which is a great way to set the tone. And then after that, you could set the bar. And I'm like, well, I'm going to keep going back to this young lady or this young man, because he really showed an interest in what we're doing in our office. And that's something that when I'm interviewing, I definitely will make note, make stars. And whenever you're done with an interview, whether how well it went, how bad it went, always send a written thank you. I know it sounds antiquated and old. You can send the email saying thank you so much for your time today. But if I get that card, a week later and we're, wrapping up our interviews, I'll be like, that guy who did the research and took that time also sent me a handwritten thank you card for the council member in our office. So those little things really stick in the minds of those that you're interviewing with, and I would definitely recommend to do that. A little bit of those extra steps shows me that I can count on you to go further in your job, and honestly, those are big, big points for me when I look at that.
And sending a personalized thank you note is extremely important. I've actually hired people that have done that to me, so always keep that in mind. You guys touched a little bit on perseverance. Incredibly important when you're applying for that first job to have. I know from experience, and you guys probably as well, what can you tell me about challenges and how you overcame them in the beginning of your career and currently?
I can probably speak to that. Recently, I have had to learn a lot about myself. And so being able to know your limits, what points that you start to get uncomfortable with, really being able to know who you are and what you're doing. And that focus of my mission is, I always go back to, I want to change the public perception of what a public servant is. So that uncomfortableness that I feel, is it from something new that's happening, or is this from a challenge that I don't know that I can live up to? And the answer is always, yeah, I can live up to it. I'm going to go and conquer that. I'm going to climb that mountain, attack it head on. My council member decided to do something he's never done before and give me the opportunity to expand my research on council items. So I'm going to be a subject matter expert on every city council item, on every agenda, every week for all of the weeks of the year that we have city council. And some of these agendas are going to be 60 agenda items, and that's a task. Right now it's taking me about 4 hours to do it, but I'm doing it and seeing that it's benefiting me as a chief of staff, so I'm more knowledgeable and can prepare him for what he's doing. And additionally, I'm learning this like the back of my hand, so I'll be able to, if staff needs briefing points on them, I'm happy to do that as well. So whenever, you have that challenge, keep going, really kind of figure out where that uncomfortableness is coming from and how you will be rewarded in the end once you get past that point of uncomfortableness.
I think probably the job that taught me the most about myself was working on a statewide campaign. It was my first campaign. It was my second job. It was right after I had finished grad school, and I felt like I had to give everything of me. Like I put so many miles on my car traveling. I would stay up really late and go to sleep, really late, and then wake up really early. Put a bunch of calls on my cell phone that weren't reimbursed, mileage that sometimes wasn't reimbursed either. I mean, it was taxing physically, emotionally, and I was very mission driven as well. But what I learned from that was that the importance of self-care, that your social mission, there will always be tomorrow, and how important it is to have a network of people, whether it be your friends or your family or your mentors, to ensure that you are also caring for yourself, because I think we're the kind of people that want to say yes to every issue or yes to every service opportunity that comes our way, and I think that's wonderful, but try to learn your limits now, because you're young and you're hopeful and you want to do all of these things, and that we need you, and that, absolutely, I don't want to in any way dissuade you from that, but I also want to be what my mom was for me, to say, like, at the end of the day, if you're sick or if you're in a car crash, there's nothing that you can do, so take care of yourself.
I would definitely echo Michelle's talk about support network. My obstacles were probably a little different than most of you here. Do we have any military or veterans here? Thanks for your service. So, as you all know, coming in to the civilian sector from military provides its own unique set of obstacles. What I did to overcome that is I really had to take a look at my perspective and change it to fit my new environment. So, in the military, I was doing things that operating a nuclear reactor on a submarine. Then I'm back in school with a bunch of younger folks, and I'm working a couple minimum wage jobs to supplement my GI Bill, and I'm doing a couple internships at the same time. And so I'm back on at the bottom of the totem pole, and that can be a hard adjustment. Now, I'm not going to say that they're similar, but many of you may be younger that are coming from high school or something. You may have been in a position that, big fish in a small pond, and now you're a fish in a much, much larger pond, and it's difficult to kind of adjust to that. So what you got to do is take a step back, think about your perspective, your worldview, and how you fit in currently, and then run with it. And it takes a lot of soul searching. It's going to take your support network, friends, family, mentors. Find mentors and talk with them. Don't be afraid to say you don't know, but you want to learn.
And Paul, you touched a little bit on mentorship, and that's something that's a hot topic as of lately. What can we tell these guys about mentorship? Do you guys have mentors? How did you find them, and what do they mean to you?
Absolutely, I do have mentors. Some people that have just been there in my life and provided great advice. Other people that have provided much more extensive guidance in terms of advice and career advice, etc. I made those mentors by being involved, by being visible, by interning, by showing up, by asking questions, by admitting that I did not know, but I wanted to know. There are plenty of people, such as ourselves here, that are back here, taking time out of our Saturday. I was at work just down the street, but we're all here taking time out of our Saturday because we care about y'all. We do. We're here to let you know that there is a path from there to here, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. So there's us, you get us because you showed up here. There's also the other members of NPF, and you know, when you go to the campaign boot camp, when you go to a Texas Tribune Festival event, when you do things like that, talk to people that that are older, that look like you know, maybe they're a bit unapproachable. Go approach them, ask them a question. That may end up being somebody that can provide you guidance for much longer than just that initial meeting.
Yeah, and I would also just add, yes, I think the importance of mentors cannot be understated. In any professional space that I've been in, whether it was in the nonprofit sector or campaigning or at the Ledge, I've sought out, you know, someone that would be able to guide me, and that has been so critical. And of course, I'm not afraid. You know, I try to always say yes, but you all also have a lot of experience and advice to share. I'm sure some of you are already doing that sort of mentorship, but I would, you know, just want to remind you all to also try to reach out to your communities back home and show them that there's a seat here waiting for them once you all are out, you know, changing the world and doing the work that you're doing, so that we continue this pathway into public service.
Everything that they've said is already in my head, so I don't need to repeat that. I can just tell you a little bit more about where I found my mentors. They weren't always in the political sphere, so don't feel like that because you want a career in politics, that's where your best mentorships are going to come from. One of my closest mentors is actually the CEO and president of our local chamber. She's a woman that I can look up to and you know, say, hey, how did you get to where you are? What are you doing with your staff that can help me teach my staff? What programs are out there? Always continue to learn, because that's what my mentors are telling me. Pick up books like Do Good. Pick up books like The Tipping Point. Look at those books that show great leadership skills. I know you guys have probably heard of Who Moved My Cheese. The mayor's chief of staff came in my office one afternoon and she goes, hey, I know that book. Have you read that book? And then the mayor comes around the corner, and there's an opportunity that I capitalized on because I had a book in my office that I read. So share those books with your friends. Create little libraries on your floors if you guys are in an apartment complex. You know, pass around resources. Share those, because my mentors say the day you stop learning is the day that you stop progressing. So never stop learning. The day that you're bored with your job, the day that you stop, you know, teaching yourself things is the day that it's going to end. So you need to continue to add value to the office. You don't just become chief of staff and stay there. You've got to continue to grow and help your team and add resources to the office so that your boss can continue to do their job to the best of the ability that they can. And so I would definitely say that those mentors are definitely an asset, but also, you know, see what they're reading. Get their book list. Say, hey, do you have a book I could borrow? And start there.
Absolutely. All right, so after this, we'll be moving into an activity breaking down how to craft and pitch an elevator pitch. Do you guys have any advice for how to create an elevator pitch, and do you have one?
Yeah, know exactly what you want out of the incidental meeting. Whatever you're planning on this pitch for, if it's going to be to people at a networking party, to somebody after a event like this that you like to, what do you want at the end? What do you want that person to walk away thinking about you? And then tailor it towards that. And as always, like I started off with, if you've got your passion behind it, then you're going to make a much better impression than if it's something that you're just trying to memorize and repeat. So, you know, your 30-second elevator pitch should not be the same every time, because it's driven by the passion and the moment. So tailor that to your intended outcome, and you got yourself an elevator pitch.
Yeah, I would just say try to make that human connection with someone, to what Paul just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. If you have the benefit of knowing who you're who's going to be in the room, who you're going to speak to, go with some of their, maybe a personal detail. Maybe you went to UT Austin and the person you're talking to went to UT Austin. Talk about a football game if you know their favorite sport. So if you have the benefit of knowing who the person is you're going to be speaking to, definitely try to get that human connection, find that detail that kind of makes you memorable. But that's something that I would definitely recommend. Most of the time you're meeting people off the hand, but you just have to come off being comfortable with yourself and confident, because meeting new people is always nerve-wracking. And just kind of cutting through that awkwardness of the first few minutes and just being comfortable and confident with yourself and who you are and what you're representing as a person.